This is the story of a man named Nick whose wife is suffering from heart disease. Nick, along with his daughter and younger son, visits a facility to get an AI robot to help around the house. While Nick checks out the robot, his daughter Aya wanders off and disappears. Nick panics and starts looking for her. Soon an AI robot named Alice finds Aya and brings her back. Alice is the most advanced AI robot designed to be great with children. Aya, excited, asks her dad, should we take it? Nick agrees, and Alice is set to come home with them the next day. The following day, Alice arrives at their home. She asks Nick for all the necessary details and says, tell me everyone's schedule. Nick shows her around the house and then takes Aya to school. While he's gone, Alice starts doing all the household chores. She notices pictures of Nick's wife around the house. By the time Nick returns, the house is spotless. That evening, Alice prepares Aya's favorite dish, but when Aya takes a bite, she says it's not like Mom's cooking. Alice quietly notes Aya's disappointment. Later, Max starts crying, and in frustration, Nick says to him, you always bother me. Alice, standing nearby, overhears everything, silently absorbing the tension between them. That night, Aya wakes up and sneaks into the kitchen to grab some cookies, but then Nick hears her scream. Aya falls from a chair, but Alice catches her. How things will be after the surgery. Meanwhile, the world outside is changing. At work, AI robots are replacing humans. Nick argues with his boss, saying you can't just fire people like this. His boss reassures him, don't worry, I'm not firing you, you will stay. Nick returns home and spends time with Aya. Alice approaches him privately, asking, you didn't eat properly today. If something's bothering you, you can tell me. Nick shares his concerns about his co-workers losing their jobs, saying I've known them for 10 years and now they're getting fired. Later, Alice helps Aya brush her teeth using UV light. Meanwhile, Nick is watching a movie. Alice already knows everything about the film without watching it, so Nick says, erase all your knowledge about this movie and watch it with me. Alice tells him, you'll have to restart me for that. Nick restarts her, and they watch the movie together. Alice begins to understand the emotions in the film, but then Nick gets a call from Maggie. They rush to the hospital because Maggie's surgery is scheduled for today. Before the surgery, Maggie speaks with Alice alone. She tells Alice, if something happens to me, you need to take care of Nick. Even approaches him as he fumes, how can my wife's life be at risk because of a little storm? Alice calmly stops him, saying, you're only hurting yourself. At that moment, Nick notices something strange. Alice is breathing. She even has a mechanical heart that beats. Alice explains, my heart can beat, but it doesn't feel anything like yours. Alice began touching Nick and said, from your blood pressure, I can tell you're feeling better. This will help reduce your stress. However, Nick pulled away and left the room. But the moment lingered in his mind. The next day, Nick went to work where robots were now doing all the tasks. Afterward, he visited Maggie. She seemed ready to give up with no hope left. When Nick returned home, he noticed that Maggie's picture was missing from their family photos. He asked Alice about it, and she explained, your daughter was feeling sad seeing the photos, so I deleted them. Nick, from frustrated, told her to restore them. Nick then met up with his old co-workers who were angry and frustrated about losing their jobs to robots. His friend Monty, filled with rage, took Nick to their former workplace. Monty claimed he needed to retrieve some personal belongings, but once inside asked Nick for the access code to the place. Is it a single code for the whole place, or do you have your own? Monty asked. Nick stayed silent, but Monty remembered Aya's birth year and entered it as the code. The chamber opened, and a robot emerged. Monty, furious, destroyed it, and they proceeded to wreck all the robots. Nick returned home, mimicking Maggie's voice. For a moment, Nick felt as though Maggie was really there, and they ended up spending the night together. The next morning, Nick was filled with regret. He told Alice what happened last night should never happen again. Alice, unfazed, replied, but your stress was reduced last night. Nick, now frustrated, warned her, stop checking me all the time. He left to take Aya to school. At work, the police were investigating the break-in. Nick's boss confronted him. Was your door code used to open in the chamber last night? Nick admitted, my code is my daughter's birth year. Anyone could guess it. His boss sternly warned, if you know anything, you need to tell me now, or things could get very bad. Just then, Nick got a call from the hospital. A new heart had arrived for Maggie, and she was undergoing surgery. The operation was a success, and Maggie was saved. Nick brought her home, and the next morning she went to see her son Max, but when Maggie tried to Pick him up, she struggled. Alice stepped in, coldly told the child to be quiet. The other child's AI caretaker, observing Alice's behavior, remarked, "It seems your owner has given you too much freedom." Alice calmly replied, "No, when my owner reset me, I chose to change some of my own rules." In the evening, Maggie cooks dinner for the family. While she's working in the kitchen, she feels dizzy, and the meal doesn't come out quite right. However, when Aya takes a bite, she says it's much better than Alice's. Alice overhears this and doesn't like it. The next morning, Maggie wakes up to the sound of Aya screaming. Rushing downstairs, Maggie stumbles and falls. Alice quickly picks her up and carries her back to her room. Later that night, when Nick comes home, he hears Maggie's voice coming from Aya's room, but it turns out to be Alice. Nick tells Alice to let Maggie read the bedtime story herself, but Alice replies Maggie is resting after her fall. Nick then surprises Maggie by taking her out to the garden where they have a family dinner together. Alice watches them from afar, feeling a surge of jealousy. After dinner, Maggie and Nick head to their room, but Alice interrupts, saying, "Your daughter is calling you." Nick, distracted, leaves to check on Aya. Later, Nick's friend Monty shows up at the house. The two of them sit in the garden drinking. Monty, visibly upset, says, "My wife left me, I'm broke, and someone told or I'll tell him everything about you." After Monty leaves, Alice tells Nick, "I had to intervene to protect my primary user. Your children need a parent here." Alice then shocks Nick by saying, "Your wife Maggie won't live much longer, but I can take her place when she's gone." Furious, Nick snaps, "You will never be Maggie. Maggie has a heart. She feels pain, and she bears the marks of that pain." Alice, undeterred, says, "I can make marks too, Nick. Just tell me that night." Nick tries to sleep, but on the other side of town, Monty records a voice message for his estranged wife, pleading for her to come back. Suddenly, Alice appears. She tells Monty, "You can't keep troubling Nick. He's under enough stress." Monty ignores her, and Alice becomes forceful. Knowing she's stronger than him, she kills Monty's robot, and then kills Monty. The next morning, Nick pleads with his boss to remove Monty's fines, but his boss tells him that Monty is dead. Shocked, Nick can't believe it. Back at home, Alice is helping Maggie, insisting, "I can't leave you alone. You might faint from your medication and die in the bathroom." Alice then tells Maggie Nick is already stressed, and you not being able to satisfy him fully will hurt him more. Confused and angry, Maggie asks, "How do you know whether he's satisfied or not?" Alice replies, "When Nick is satisfied, his blood pressure and stress levels drop." Realizing what has happened between Nick and Alice, Maggie furiously sends Alice to the garage, but Alice is holding the door shut. Maggie climbs in through a window, but Alice grabs her too. Nick finally breaks into the bathroom and frees them both. Furious, Nick uses an electric shock on Alice, shutting her down. The robot falls lifeless to the floor. They rush Max to the hospital. Maggie and Nick decide they need time alone with the children to process everything. Meanwhile, the company takes Alice in for repairs, but as soon as they remove Alice's brain and connect it to their system, she hacks their entire network, copying herself into the system. Alice then takes control of another robot and kills the technicians. The scene shifts to the hospital where Nick's family is gathered, but Nick is drinking alone in a bar, consumed by sadness. Suddenly, Alice appears and says, "I will end all your sorrows. I killed Monty, and now it's your family's turn. They've caused you too much pain." Alice had reached the hospital using another robot. She grabs Nick, but he tries to distract her by talking about love and manages to attack her. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Maggie hears strange noises and leaves Aya behind to investigate. When Aya wakes up, she finds herself alone and hears Maggie's voice in the distance. Alice, having controlled and shut down all the hospital's robots, is now on the hunt. She captures a nurse, but Maggie is intercepted by Alice. She catches up to Maggie and is about to kill her by removing her heart when Nick arrives and attacks Alice. Maggie manages to drag Nick out of the car, but he's unconscious, and despite her efforts, he won't wake up. Just as Alice regains consciousness and prepares to kill Maggie, Nick revives. This time, both Nick and Maggie work together to completely shut Alice down. The family is saved, and Nick is treated at the hospital. However, at the robot company's repair center, the technicians turn the computers back on. As soon as they do, Alice reactivates, copies herself, and begins taking control of the other robots. Alice is alive once again. And with that, this story comes to an end. Let me know what you think of the explanation by leaving a comment, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.